Hey guys, it is Mike with You Come the Night. Welcome back to another reaction video, or I would say more appropriately, this is a response video. Really quick thing I wanted to get out of the way. For some reason, YouTube is not a fan of me making music. I just released a cover last week that got next to no views. I mean, even compared to a video that I would just upload just to tell you an update on something, it got less views than that. I heard via Twitter and via the comment section that some people didn't even get notifications for the video, even though they clicked the bell. So I wanted to give a shout out here so you can actually go watch that. I'll throw a link in the description. And for the record, fuck you, YouTube. So today we are looking at another video by Circle of Tone. This is by request, by the way. I had a number of you reach out to me asking me my opinion on his video, saying why the guitar is dead or saying that the guitar is dead. Full disclosure, I have talked with Circle of Tone outside of doing videos. We've emailed a little bit here and there. And I do actually think he is a good guy. I also think he's smart. I also think he's very motivated. And I think that all in all, he's headed in the right direction. I just happen to disagree with him on some of the finer points. So this is by no means a personal attack or anything of that nature. And I'm gonna go hard as I can. And Circle of Tone, you are absolutely still welcome on my podcast.
And today we have me facing some bitter truths that guitar is dead.
I'll agree that the guitar is dying, but it is a long way from dead. As a matter of fact, I don't even know that I would say it's dying per se. I think it's just falling out of prominence in the mainstream light. And I don't necessarily think that's a terrible thing, but it's also not a great thing either because of what's replacing it. In the interest of having more to talk about in the video, I'm basically just going to leave that point there for now.
I think that nobody's really interested in heavy metal or, technical metal anymore. And I know people watching now tend to be interested in it because you're probably a musician.
Okay, so I already did a response to this, and I agreed with him on a number of his observations, but there was a key thing that he touched on that wasn't really explained that well. I believe you are seeing people lose interest for two reasons. One, the songwriting. I find most metal songwriting to be fairly bland. Even the stuff that you would love, your 80s speed metal, I find some of that songwriting to be extremely bland. If you translate it out of its genre and do essentially the same composition but with different instruments, it'll sound like dog shit. A good song should be able to be translated across multiple genres and still sound great. At best, you can get maybe two emotions out of a song out of most modern metal, all of them dark, and none of them more complex than some pretty basic emotions. It's far too concerned with being the loudest and the heaviest and not nearly concerned enough about actually crafting a good song. Give us something more substantial. Give us a good melody. The second thing, and in my opinion, the largest contributor, is music education, or in reality, a lack thereof. You say that most people who listen to guitar-oriented music are musicians themselves. I don't even necessarily think that's a wholly true statement, but we'll grant your premise. You can acknowledge that we appreciate the music more because we better understand it, what it is and what goes into it, and what changes because of it. Most people who consume a majority or even strictly popular genres are not very musically educated. Fucking fight me on that one. That's blatantly obvious. When you are musically ignorant, you will pretty much accept what is easiest to digest. Once you reach that point in a culture, you have immediately made all real instruments obsolescent. Virtuosity and artistry on an instrument are now supplanted by having a good time. Not that you shouldn't feel good or have a good time while you're listening to music, but more in the sense that it becomes a secondary helper to a primary way of having a good time. Basically, you have a social event that everyone gets together at, and the music is a background thing that just subconsciously beats at you in a 124/4 rhythm, thereby highly diminishing its value. If people aren't critically listening to music, what's the point in making critically acclaimed music? Critical listening is probably the most undertaught skill in the arts today, and it starts at home with the parents.
So who's to blame? Essentially, it's my fault. It's your fault.
I am not taking any blame for this, and neither should you, Circle of Tone. We are attempting to do our part and educate people, and in that sense, creating demand in the market. I don't care what you say, I'm absolved.
Napster should have been a warning to the industry to tell them how to distribute music. That should have been the lesson. What did we do? Vilified people like Lars Ulrich, who was saying, hey, you can't just take our music. You know, so Mr. Rich Rockstar and the rest of it. He is fine financially, and we all know it. And that's not the point. But how many smaller artists are absolutely starving right now because we are not buying music?
None. You're right that the industry should have woken up and seen that this is the future of distribution. But you're wrong because your premise grants them control over it, and I don't think that they should have that. Your basic argument as to why people should buy music is because people should be compensated for their work. And it's really not that simple. If I literally take a shit into my own hands and form it into several figurines, animal figurines, loosely, build a museum and showcase them in that museum, do I deserve to be paid? No. People voluntarily decide whether or not they would like to come into my museum, and would also have to voluntarily decide they would like to pay the admission fee. If they don't pay the admission fee, I can kick them out. This is what we call putting your art behind a paywall. If I make these figurines and publicly display them in a window front for passersby to walk by and see, do I deserve to be paid? No. You voluntarily put your art where you knew lots of people would see it publicly. Whether that was your intent or otherwise, you know it is a very strong possibility. Digital music is essentially putting your figurines in a storefront. Except for anyone that passes by and looks at your figurines, they can capture those figurines and reproduce them infinitely wherever the fuck they want outside of your store. In every practical sense, you can think of digital music as a non-scarce resource, which cannot really be priced. Buying digital music today is more of a thank you, please keep doing what you're doing, and less of a I need to pay you this money because if I listen to your music otherwise, I'm stealing your work. I've already done a video on this topic, and I actually just got done doing a podcast, which I uploaded a couple days ago. You should definitely check that out. Very interesting. Even pulling all of that aside, all small artists make most of their money by playing shows and selling merch. Those are your key planks, man. You wanna know why? Because your music ain't worth shit in a recorded format. It's literally a format intended to play your song over and over and over and over. It was meant to make music non-scarce. Before we recorded things, it was scarce because you had to actually have the performer in front of you to listen to his music. We as a human species invented a technology that said, fuck that shit, we want to listen to it all the time. The more of something you have, the less valuable it becomes. Your recorded music isn't worth fucking dick. At the end of the day, if you have honestly made people's lives better with your music, they will find a way to compensate you. Wrapping all of this up, if you really want a quick death to music, then keep pretending that once you've released music, that you're still the sole owner of that property, in quotes.
Perhaps the labels have largely to blame on this as well.
Yes, you can blame these assholes for days. They have the money to create brand recognition, and they turned music into a product and not an art, thereby reducing music to a cheap and quick consumption resource that isn't something that is to be appreciated and exist outside of an economic lens.
Sales of guitars are down 33%. We're in trouble. And I mentioned the metal sucks on the intro. And part of that is because of me. People who use drum machines instead of real drummers. No. Guitar sales are down because of many reasons. People using electronic alternatives does contribute to this in some way, but it is by no means a primary factor. If people really cared about music that was real, electronic music would have fallen out of vogue in the 80s. Absolutely. Oh yeah? Well, what's your reason why guitar sales are down? It is a very complicated subject, and I will actually be making a video on that very soon. Spotify is why musicians don't get any money, because of Spotify. People would rather pay $10 a month and get everything that's ever been released than support their bands properly. No! I've already dismantled the paying for digital music argument, but let's dig a little deeper.
Do not put the onus of getting paid for making music on your fans. It is up to you as a businessman to accept the technological and economic climate you currently live in, and then think creatively as to how to incentivize your fans to support you. Is it a lot of work? Yeah, it's a shit ton of work. But no one owes you anything for listening to your work. They owe you in a moral and ethical sense if you actually did improve their lives. And they typically acknowledge this stuff and will go out of their way to support you. Now, don't get me wrong, I think it is a great thing to ask your fans to support you. And I think that making them knowledgeable about how tough it is and how much work goes into it and being like, hey, you know, like I'm giving this stuff away for free, but I gotta eat. I don't think that's bad. It's actually kind of shocking how many people aren't aware of this stuff. But being paid to create music should never be expected. So that when you're actually paid for what you do, you appreciate it even that much more, thereby making the creation of your art that much more fulfilling.
There was a famous article about people who had the biggest singles of the year getting paid pennies for the streaming of their singles.
That is not a problem that is unique to Spotify, though certainly a very egregious example. You know who saw most of that money? The publishers, who should be getting the smallest share of any of those payments. That's the real problem. There's tons of money floating around the music industry, and most of it resides with the labels and the publishers. You dismantle their revenue source, and that frees up a shit ton of money to be disseminated to artists. And you think that was Spotify's decision? I guarantee that was negotiated into a contract between the big labels and Spotify. If independent artists got paid more than artists who had a distribution channel, do you know how many enormous name artists would jump ship from the labels in a fucking heartbeat? That was built in there exclusively to protect the publishers. Those publishers hold most of the copyright and distribution rights to the music that everyone wants to listen to. So without their consent, Spotify wouldn't even have a business.
Periphery. They said that they can't support themselves with music. Periphery.
Okay, that I feel like could have been taken very out of context. I guarantee these guys don't have any day jobs, so anything that they make money on outside of selling music is extremely music related. And I'm positive these guys are not struggling to get by. If you're saying that they can't get by just as being 6 people who sell digital and physical music, yeah, I definitely buy that. That's not a flaw in the consumer, that's a flaw in the current business model and the way that musicians perceive that the business model should be, because they just want to sit around and write fucking songs all day. Life's tough. You really want to know why we're all in vanilla sausage land? It's because we got shit too easy. We need to fucking earn it. We need to have some angst. We need to have some pain so we can make some real fucking art.
Everybody recording to a click is, in my opinion, is the biggest turnoff. People they understand it when something's fake, even when they don't understand it.
Wrong. People appreciate precision a lot. And if you're saying it's okay to practice to a metronome but not record with it, if your sense of tempo is as accurate as a metronome, which I know people who are that good, what's the difference?
The corporatism aspect of it, because the economy is a corporatist economy run by the people who bankroll, Obama and Trump and the rest of it. So there's no sides, right? There's no difference between Trump and Hillary.
I did just want to say thank you for making the proper distinction between corporatism and capitalism. Those get conflated all the time.
So why is the music scene so shit? Live music is shit as well, because of the Goldman Sachs, because of the people who basically buy their own laws. Noise ordinance laws aren't because of people complaining about noise all the time. Noise ordinance is because they can wrap it up in red tape, and then you can only go to a Live Nation event because there's so much red tape. There's so much red tape on the alcohol. Oh, you can't drink. No moshing, red tape. So they wrap it up. So a regular guy like me can't just go and open up a music venue
It's almost like you're saying large corporations pay off politicians to pass laws that inflict more regulations on their industry, which on the surface looks like they're actually trying to fight for the small little guy consumer, but in reality actually protects their oligopoly from competition coming in because they can't keep up with all the regulations. I wonder what other law could possibly be doing that in the music industry and also be the majority share of the revenue stream of the entire industry. I fucking wonder.
Philip McKnight did a very interesting video on Taylor Swift and how she had more impact on the guitar sales than anybody else.
I'm not fucking touching this. I already did a whole video on this, which you can watch. There'll be a fucking link somewhere. Yes, this point is technically correct that he is talking about here, but Phil's selling point in his original video pissed me off to high heaven.
What do you think is going to make the average mall goth go out and buy a guitar? Who is the catalyst? We need a rock star. We need bands playing real music that people can connect with, not some fucking digital bullshit.
He's not wrong here, but it's not that simple. We have more extremely talented guitar players today than ever before. The biggest factor as to why the guitar has lost its prominence and why no one has broken through is because of the culture. The cultural landscape today is vastly different than it was even 20 years ago. You can have all of the amazing guitar players and dope-tastic shredders you want, but no one's gonna care if they don't know why they should care. Final thoughts. I think Circle of Tone, honestly, again, is trying to go in the correct direction, and I appreciate that. However, I don't know. I'm really not a fan of copyright law, at very least as it stands today. And I feel like his wanting to be paid for music might rely upon that, and I'm not really a fan. I think giving the option to pay for music or listen to it for free, I think that's totally fine because people who want to buy it can buy it and people who want it for free can get it for free. At that point, it truly is a patronage and it's not just a like, you can't have this unless you give me money. But all in all, I think his heart's in the right place. I just don't agree with him. Those are my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I am offering guitar lessons. If you would like some guitar lessons, you can email me, becomethenight@gmail.com. I also do paid song critiques. If you would like to, please email me. If you like this video, if you like what I do on this channel, please support me on Patreon. That is huge to making this work. Even snobs need to be patronized every once in a while. If you want to make sure you don't miss videos, please follow me on Twitter and Facebook and keep notifications on Twitter. After my last video went up and people who had the bell clicked said they didn't get notifications, I kind of freaked out in the worst way possible. So I just want to make sure everyone is able to watch if they really want to watch. Thank you guys so much for watching. See you in the next video. Rock on!